January 15, 1919. Boston, Massachusetts. 12:30 in the afternoon. A perfectly normal winter day. Children were playing in the streets, workers were eating lunch, families were going about their lives. And then the ground started shaking. Not from an earthquake, not from a bomb. A 90-foot steel tank holding 2.3 million gallons of molasses suddenly and violently exploded. And what happened next was so bizarre, so catastrophic, and so completely preventable that the people responsible spent the next 100 years making sure you never found out. Boston's North End in 1919 was one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in America. Thousands of Italian immigrant families packed into narrow streets. People who came to America chasing a better life. They raised their families in the shadow of that massive steel tank. Built by Purity Distilling Corporation to make alcohol for World War I. Business was booming, profits were enormous, but the tank was never properly tested before use. Just built and immediately filled with millions of gallons of molasses, and within weeks it started leaking. Dark molasses seeping through cracks and rivets along the walls. Local children collected free molasses from the ground below. The company's response? They painted the tank brown so the leaks were harder to see. That actually happened. Inspectors sent warning reports. Every single one was ignored, because fixing the tank would cost money, and money was more important than the lives of the families living in its shadow. On January 15th, the temperature rose unusually fast, from 2 degrees Fahrenheit overnight to almost 40 degrees by midday. This caused the molasses to expand below the tank, creating enormous pressure against already weakened and cracked walls. Workers at the nearby freight house were eating lunch. A local man named Pasquale Giantosca was walking with his young daughter. A fireman named George Leahy was relaxing at the fire station. None of them had any idea what was about to happen. At exactly 12:30, witnesses heard two distinct sounds. First, a low, deep rumble, then a sound like a machine gun. The rivets were popping off one by one under enormous pressure, and then the entire tank exploded. 2.3 million gallons of thick, dark molasses burst outward in all directions simultaneously. The force launched sections of the steel tank hundreds of feet through the air. One section sliced clean through a support column, but the molasses wave was the true terror. 15 feet tall, moving at 35 miles per hour, faster than the fastest human being alive can run at full sprint. The wave demolished the freight house. Workers inside never had a chance. It picked up the entire fire station and slammed it sideways. Fireman George Leahy was killed instantly. Horses were thrown through the air. People were swept off their feet and dragged under the thick, sticky molasses surface. And this is what made the disaster so uniquely horrific. Molasses does not move like water. The more you struggled against it, the more it tightened around you. Like quicksand made of the thickest substance imaginable. People described being completely unable to move or breathe. Pasquale Giantosca's young daughter was found dead, swept away from her father in the very first seconds. In total, the wave lasted less than 2 minutes. 21 people were dead, 150 more seriously injured. The entire neighborhood buried under 3 feet of thick, dark molasses in every direction. Rescue workers arrived to find a scene that made no logical sense. The streets they had walked that morning were completely unrecognizable. Everything was brown. Everything was thick. Everything was stuck. The molasses grabbed their boots and slowed every movement to an impossible crawl. Sailors from a nearby naval yard were brought in to help. Workers searched through the night with lanterns and ropes. Horses had to be shot because there was no way to free them. It took weeks to clean the area. The harbor turned brown where workers hosed the streets into water. Witnesses reported the entire city smelled like molasses for years. On hot summer days, the smell would return stronger than ever. Some say if you stand in the right spot in Boston's North End today, you can still smell it when the temperature rises. Now here is where the story gets truly infuriating. The company immediately blamed anarchists and socialist agitators for deliberately sabotaging the tank. This was 1919. America was terrified of anything that smelled like foreign radical influence. The company pointed at the immigrant community of the North End, at labor activists, at anyone except themselves. Headlines across Boston blamed foreign anarchists for the disaster. The immigrant families who lost their loved ones were now being blamed for their own tragedy. But this time it did not work completely. 119 survivors filed a lawsuit. It lasted 6 years. Auditor Hugh Ogden found internal company documents proving they knew about structural problems for years before the explosion. In 1925, the company was ruled fully responsible. They paid the equivalent of $30 million today. It was one of the first times in American legal history that a corporation was held fully accountable for negligence causing mass casualties. It helped establish the legal foundation for corporate liability in America that protects ordinary people to this very day. The 21 people who died on January 15, 1919 changed American law forever. They were real people, with real families, with real dreams. They deserve better than to be forgotten. And now you will never forget them. If you think these 21 victims deserve to be in every American history book, tap like right now. Comment Boston below to honor the people history forgot, because the history they buried will never stay hidden forever. Follow Vaulted Ages.